Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to be doing a countdown of my top 10 favourite films off the Arrow video label. There's no right or wrong to this list, these are just my personal top 10 favourite movies from the Arrow video label. So yeah, that being said, I'm going to get straight into it and kicking it off with the film at my number 10 spot, which is Cohen and Tate. Now, this for me was a great little film that I really enjoyed. I picked this up after watching 52 Pickup, which was another movie starring Roy Scheider, who also starred in this, along with Adam Baldwin. I thought this was just a great little movie. Premise very simple. A mob boss pretty much hires two hitmen to to find this witness that was linked to a crime with this mob boss. It turns out the witness was a child, and they're hired to sort of take care of the child. But this child is actually a lot more than they bargained for, and is actually quite smart, and pretty much plays the two hitmen off each other, planting seeds of paranoia. And it just led to this great dynamic between the two lead actors. The arguments between them, I was just completely riveted by and completely hooked. I think it's fair to say that Adam Baldwin's character was a lot more unhinged than Roy Scheider's in the way he wanted to sort of execute things. And it had an absolutely fantastic ending. The final shot in this film was absolutely great. I thought Roy Scheider was absolutely on point in this film, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that is my number 10 pick, which is Cohen and Tate. So coming in at number 9 for me is Miracle Mile. Um, a much more smaller movie from Arrow, I would say. Got a lot of charm to it. This film stars Anthony Edwards, who I think is absolutely great. I think I knew him mainly from ER as a kid, and his performance in Top Gun and Revenge of the Nerds. But again, premise very simple, very sort of simplistic in execution about a man who pretty much gets a phone call in this diner, and the phone call basically tells him that a bomb's going to go off, and he has to sort of convince everyone in this diner to leave. And it just has a lot of charm to it. Like I said, it was really enjoyable. I loved every second of it, and it was just really riveting. And I had such a blast with it, and no pun intended, but it was really fun. And it really surprised me. It's one of those great movies I went into completely blind, knowing nothing about, and it just cheered the hell out of me. I had such a good time with it. So yeah, that is Miracle Mile. Coming up next at number 8 for me is a movie I used to watch quite a lot as a kid, and it was great to see it come out on the Arrow label. And that is A Fish Called Wanda. Great little sort of bank heist movie. This about this group of we say diamond robbers, and how pretty much the group just falls apart after they pull off this heist. And it goes tits up for some of them, and some of them are just double crossing each other, and it just led to such great chemistry between its cast. The cast is on point. Michael Palin, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Cleese, Kevin Kline, who's just absolutely off the hook as Otto in this film. So unhinged, like you just do not want to get on the wrong side of him or call him stupid, because he just really takes offense to that, and it just leads to some funny shit that goes on in this film. And I really enjoyed it. The sort of spirituals, I don't say spiritual sequel, but a bit of a reunion film as well with Fierce Creatures. I think that would make a good Arrow release. I really enjoy that film too. But yeah, Fish Called One, absolutely great. Really love it. I have a lot of fun with this film. I just really enjoy the cast in it. So if you've not seen it, check it out. So coming up at number 7 for me is Society. Now, I don't particularly think this is a great film. What wins me over is the way this movie sort of finishes, shall we say. Um, a lot of paranoia, a lot of sort of speculation about what is really going on in this community or society, should I say. And it leads to a very interesting and disturbing ending, to say the least. It's one of like the best body horrors I've seen. It feels very sort of David Cronenberg towards the end of this film, and it just leads to some very interesting imagery, and it really sticks with you. It's very very creative. The ending to this, the whole shunting um, scene is just phenomenal. I absolutely love it, and its execution, it just is so creative. I can't really say much more than that. Than absolutely check this film out if you're into horrors, sort of like Reanimator and Return of the Living Dead and things like that. I think this movie will be right up your street. Films like The Fly and The Blob as well. It just really has the sort of blend of all those movies, and I really really enjoy it for that and admire it for its creativity. It's just phenomenal. It's like I say, the it's not the best film, but I find that ending enough of a payoff to enjoy this movie, and I have a really, really good time with it. And it just really is creepy and unsettling. And even if you Google some of the images on Google about this movie, its ending, it's really, really creative and disturbing. But yeah, I have a blast with it. So yeah, that is Society. So coming up next at my number six pick is again another movie I first saw when I was pretty young to see this film. I had it on VHS on a double pack with its sequel, and that is Maniac Cop. I think this movie's great. I absolutely love it. I think it's got a great cast with Bruce Campbell, Tom Atkins, and Robert Zadar as well as Matt Cardell. I mean, wow, that guy has such a presence in this movie, um, and yeah, I absolutely love it. There's this whole mystery surrounding this sort of rogue police officer who's killing innocent civilians, and Bruce Campbell's pretty much like sort of framed for this murder, and it just leads to this sort of this complex scenario, which I just really really was hooked by, and this the whole investigation. I really, really got into it, and I just had an absolute blast with it. I love seeing Tom Atkins on screen. I absolutely love him. Night of the Creeps, Halloween 3. So I have a really, really good time with that actor. Um, Whenever he shows up in a film, just a really, really good stuff. The standout scene for me in this movie is the scene where the Maniac cop has a flashback to when he was in prison, and the whole music in that sequence is absolutely phenomenal. It's a sequence that has next to no dialogue in it, and yet you feel the weight of what's going on. It's absolutely fantastic. It's just such an impactful sequence, and I absolutely love it. And I love this film for what it is, and I adore it, and I think it's brilliant. So yeah, that is my number six pick, which is Maniac Cop. So coming up next for me at number five is Joe Dante's Matinee, starring John Goodman. I think this film came out in 1993. Very interesting film about sort of cinema, shall we say? Sort of about this missile crisis that's going on as well, and all the while you've got John Goodman, who's pretty much this sort of B horror movie director who is trying to promote his new film. Comes to this small town, and everyone's trying to put a stop to it. They just don't want to know. They don't, and this is before having even seen his film. They just don't want to know. It's very much sort of like kind of what happened with Joker a couple of years ago. People were just like trying to put a stop to that film without actually having seen it. and I think it was kind of like ahead of its time for that, for taking on those themes. But I have an absolute blast with it. It is just so good. It's so colourful. It's so refreshing to watch it on Blu-ray. It's absolutely fantastic. This was a first time watch for me as well, going into it on blind, watching it on Arrow, and it was just wonderful. I had such a good time with it. One of Joe Dante's most underrated films, in my opinion. Really, really good. I can't praise it enough. I suggest you seek this movie out and check it out. It's absolutely fantastic, and I had just such a wonderful time with it. So yeah, that is my number 5 pick, which is Matinee. So coming in at number 4 for me is Heathers with Christian Slater and Winona Ryder. This was a movie I absolutely hated the first time I watched it. I could not get into it in any shape or form. It just did absolutely nothing for me. And then I sort of gave it a rewatch a couple of years later, and going into it with a fresh pair of eyes really changed my opinion on it. I really, really had a good time with it, and it's become a cult favorite of mine that I just love to go back to. Um, yeah, every now and again, really, really good. I hit this bump where I was just like, right, I want to sort of collect and watch Christian Slater movies, because I watched True Romance, and that really, really impressed me, that film. So I picked up Heathers, picked up Broken Arrow, and then years down the line as well, I've watched like film movies like Pump Up the Volume and Untamed Heart, Legend of Billie Jean, which is a great underrated film. Also, as well, Winona Ryder. In my late teens, early 20s, I had a massive crush on her, particularly in this film. Movies like, Heathers, Mermaids, Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, Reality Bites. I had this massive crush on her. And yeah, I just love watching anything that she's in. It's just absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it takes a dark turn, this movie, for what it is. It's just really, really dark. Like, it has this dark undertone, but it's quite bright and colourful on the surface. Christian Slater gives a great performance in it. Like, he's absolutely fantastic. I just love Evers. I think it's great. It's just a fun time. So yeah, if you've not seen it, check it out. Absolutely fantastic. Love it. So coming in at third place for me is The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Um, this movie and my number 2 pick define batshit crazy, in my opinion. This is a movie I absolutely love. I love the cast. Too many to name, but I'll try. Peter Weller, Jeff Goldblum, Clancy Brown, John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd. Absolutely insane cast. I can't even tell you what this film's about. It's just absolutely batshit bonkers. It's basically Buckaroo Banzai and sort of his band trying to stop these aliens, I guess. But yeah, Buckaroo Banzai is like a surgeon and a rock star and a samurai all at once. He's just a man of many talents, and it just goes on like that. It is fantastic. It is pure 80s. It's a movie that could have only been made in the 80s in terms of its experimental ventures. It just really, really encapsulates the decade and shows it in all of its colours and all of its glory. And I love it for that. I absolutely admire this film to death and think it is fantastic. But yeah, it's batshit insane, and I love it for it. So yeah, that is my number 3 pick. So my number 2 pick is, if you say that's batshit insane, what else could have been batshit insane from the 80s? I've got This is one of my favorite steelbooks ever, from Arrow as well. One of my favorite John Carpenter films, and is Big Trouble in Little China. Yeah, another film that defines batshit crazy, in my opinion, and is so much fun, in every sense of the word. From what John Carpenter does from behind the camera and what Kurt Russell does in front of it, it's amazing. I just absolutely love it. As you know, Kurt Russell's Jack Burton. You know, you've got Kim Cattrall in there as well. It's absolutely great. I absolutely love it. Jack Burton sort of is like he gets sort of like offended when people don't know who he is, and it's great. I just absolutely love it for it. And you know, his best mate's always there pulling him out the shit. He's like the true hero of this movie. Um, but yeah, David Lopan as well, great villain. Wow, I mean, so entertaining. But yeah, this truly is a movie that has to be seen to be believed, and I think it is fantastic. It's one of John Carpenter's best, in my opinion, one of my personal favourites. Didn't grow up with it at all. Only saw it for the first time about 10 years ago. Probably not even that. Probably about 8 years ago when I was in my early 20s. But yeah, I absolutely loved it and thought it was fantastic. So yeah, that's John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China in second place. So my number one pick is probably not a surprise to many people that know me in the YouTube community. Um, I'm just going to say what this is. This is my number one pick, and it is The Last American Virgin. Now, this movie to me is far from a perfect movie. It's got its problems. It's a typical sex teen comedy for the first two acts, to say the least. Um, I'd go as far to say it's definitely not the best movie on this list, and I'd go as far to say some of the acting in this is not great. It's quite hokey in places. So after saying that, you're probably saying, "Well, why is this your number one pick?" I'd say it's my number one pick because never have I watched a film and the ending to this film in particular never has an ending had an impact on me like this film has had ever in my opinion. I mean, the ending to this movie is too good for this movie's own right. I think the ending is absolutely on point. It's one of the most realistic endings I've ever seen to a film. I don't want to big up the ending because it might not be for everyone, but for me personally, I could relate a hell of a lot to the end of this film. Um, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I admire this film so much for having the balls to stick to the ending that this movie has. It's a shame that this movie is out of print on Arrow now. To buy this brand new, I think it goes for about £100 on eBay. I think your best bet, if you want to seek this movie out, is to pick it up from CEX. I think it's about £25 used. But for me, for a silly sex teen comedy, sort of in the same vein as Porky's and Revenge of the Nerds, to have a third act that this movie has is truly something special. And I absolutely love it and adore it for it and sticking to its guns and keeping that ending intact. And I admire it so much for it. It is truly something special that third act to me personally. You might not feel the same way. You might have seen this film and gone, what you want about?" But for me, it was something very special in cinema for me, and it really has me thinking. I mean, I would say the first time I watched this film in full, I had to sort of take a step back afterwards and rewind it because I wasn't actually too sure of what I'd seen. I was like, is that really the way this movie's going? Is that really the way this is ending? And yeah, it had to sink in. Um, it just felt like the most anti-Hollywood ending ever to a movie. Um, I'd say the final shot in this film, without giving any spoilers away or anything like that, but the way that this movie ends, the final shot involves three actors, and there's no dialogue between any of them. They all just look at each other, and given the situation in that third act and the build-up that third act leads to, these three actors don't say a word. They just look at each other, and you completely feel the weight of everything that has happened and what is going on and what's to come for the three of them. You feel the gravity of that situation. Everything is translated by the looks that these three actors give. And it is truly, truly something special, and it is phenomenal in my opinion. And for a movie to do that with no dialogue is absolutely phenomenal. It just stuck with me, and it really, really had an impact on me. So yeah, that is why it's my favorite movie off the Arrow label. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It has its problems, yeah, definitely. It's not perfect. Like I said, some of the acting's hokey. I could cut some of the scenes out. It's quite cringy in places, in those first two acts, but the third act is just a true turnaround in quality, in my opinion, and I absolutely love it for it. So yeah, that is my number one pick, Last American Virgin. Absolutely love it. So yeah, those are my top 10 favorite movies from the Arrow label. I'll leave the video there, and I'll just say thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.